Hi all, Mike German here from Visual Animation. So welcome to part 3 of this animating characters. In this video we are going to add a blaster gun to the Stormtrooper character. Okay, it's probably not quite as you think the way we're going to do this, because what I want to do is I don't want the gun to be in the hands all the time. I want it to be on the body of the stormtrooper, and then at a time when he needs the gun, I want him to then reach and grab and then have the gun holding in the hands. So there's a few little steps we need to do to be able to attach objects and deattach objects, or attach them to different parts of the body and reattach, you know what I mean? So there's a few little steps we need to do. So the first thing we need to do is go and get a blaster gun to import into the scene. Now just before I do that, I want to just mention that the sequence I did in part 2, I grabbed those 5 animated sections, or whatever you want to call them, sequences from Mixamo, and I've changed a couple of them, only because I chose one that he was holding a pistol and walking backwards, and if you just have a look on here, I've changed that. So I've kept all the first bit the same, but I've just amended this to he holds like a rifle style gun in 2 hands. Because I looked back at some Star Wars clips and I noticed that this E11 blaster that the Stormtrooper has is more of a kind of rifle 2-hand gun rather than like a pistol style gun. So all you need to do is just go to Mixamo and just choose rifle animations instead of the pistol ones. Okay, so that's all I've done is I've chosen very similar ones where he takes the gun from his side and then he holds it and then he walks backwards. So it's very similar. The other one, he took the gun and then walked backwards with a pistol. So yeah, that's all I've done is I've just amended these last 3 frames with this other holding the gun in 2 hands. Just thought I'd mention that in case you saw this and went, that's not the same as what I've got. That's why. Okay, so what we do, let's just go over to Sketchfab here, and I've already found one, right? So this is called E11 Blaster Rifle Game Ready. I might just put a link below this video, that might be useful, and then you can go straight to this page and grab it, because I think this is pretty good representation of the Stormtrooper rifle. Okay, now I've already downloaded this, so there's no point me going through that bit again. I just want to show you what I've just gone and got. So if we go back to Cinema 4D now, the sequences are all in place as we got last time, with these additional new ones I've put in at the end. And the purpose of this video today is I want to show you how you correctly attach and detach objects from these characters. Okay, so we need to actually put a gun in there, but we don't want it in his hands when he's doing this, because he'll have the gun up here on his head, you know, so he won't have it with him at all times. He'll have it attached to his body, and then when he needs the gun, he'll go and grab it. So that's what I want to show you how that works. So if we go up to File here, and then we merge objects, and then I need to navigate to let's have a look where I put it, to I think models, yeah, E11 blaster, here we go. So let's bring that into the scene. Yeah, I just want to draw your attention to the textures on this model that I've just imported, because it doesn't look like they've been connected to it, they're not linked. Okay, so I'll just show you, if you just go in on the gun there, look, you'll see that there isn't any texture on there at all. Now we can fix that quite quickly, because I think it all uses the same set of textures, and it goes across all of these. So all we do is we just double click on the first texture there. On color, we then go to texture here, and the little 3 dots at the end, and then we choose this material, the first one, albedo I think it says, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, that's the first one for the main color. So we open that and say yes, we'll have that in there. And then we go to, now we need to add a few more bits in here, because this particular blaster gun uses a normal channel, it uses a bump channel, uses reflectance, it uses various bits, and you can find them all in here. So we've got reflectance, we need to tick normal, and we need to tick bump. Okay, so if we go to reflectance and we go to specular, we can actually, down here where it says texture, we can add, if we click on the 3 dots, we can add the metallic one to that. Okay, you can see a few changes there. And then on bump, 3 dots at the end, we choose roughness and go okay. Now that's too rough because the strength is set at 100. So we need to dial that back to about 20, and it just gives it a little bit of a kind of bumpy metal feel. The normal tab is this one here. Yes. And I think, I don't know if there's any more. Let me just see if there's any more. Alpha channel glow. No, I think that's all the ones added on. Now, it looks like to me we need to make it a little bit blacker. It doesn't. I think that could be the reflectance actually. Yeah, we've got too many. This is it. Let's just turn these down a little bit, or let's mess with a few of them. Or actually, I prefer to change this to a Beckman or GGX Beckman, like that. We can bring the roughness down, the specular down, a little bit of reflection. Let's just render that. I just want to see what we've got. We've actually got some really good textures on there, but for me it just looks a little bit, it wants to be a little bit blacker. So let's just think how we can do that. Can we add it here? If we can. Will that darken it up a bit? You can't do it in there necessarily, so let's just do it in color. So if we choose a kind of a dark color here, we can then go to mix mode and say add or multiply. Yeah, multiply, but then don't have it quite as high. It's not actually doing much, is it? Let's go add. Oh, that's right, yeah, let's go add and then bring that down. The reflectance, I think, I don't know, probably don't want much. We probably want a little bit more kind of metal look to it. But again, you just have to play around with these settings until it looks kind of about right. I think we dial that up, we dial that down, but we don't want it to be really shiny. Let's just have a look at what that looks like in the actual render. Yeah, it's still got that kind of metal. It might be fine. I mean, we can always play with that later, but I just wanted to show you what happens, because they do come in sometimes without the texture attached, and you do have to go and reassign it to it. Anyway, that's that bit. Let's get on to what this video is really about. It's about adding this weapon to the animated character here. Right, so first thing to do is it's come in and it's not been grouped. Right, so we need to make sure when you import it or merge it through file here, that we grab all of the files. Sometimes they come in grouped, sometimes they come in like this. They all vary depending on who's put the file together, you know, before you download. So all you do is you just do that and you say group, and then we'll call that an E11 blaster. Right, now let's position it. Let's just have a look in these 4 views, and let's position the gun somewhere right, visually kind of in the right place to start with. Right, so we'll go across to there like that. Let's go back to this view, then we can see that it's actually facing the wrong way and it's far too small. Okay, so we can correct that quite easily. We can turn on this axis here. Let's go to 90 on that one, and let's use the scale tool and just scale it up. We don't know exactly what it needs to be yet, but as we position it in on the character where his hands are sitting, we can adjust the scale of the gun to match. Right, so we don't want the gun available in this view. So let's move the character until there, look, that's where he goes for the gun and then holds the gun. Okay. So anyway, what I tend to do here is I want to put the gun in the right place when he's holding it like that. Okay, because if you put it on the belt, it could be in the wrong place, so when he goes to grab it, it then doesn't go into the hands properly. So I think the most important part is to make sure that we get this orientation right for it to sit in the hands, so he's holding the right part of the gun. And this does take a little bit of messing around because we have to just keep rotating and readjusting and looking at different views until we get this to, okay, so obviously that is completely wrong because he needs his finger on the trigger just there. Okay, so then what does that mean for the butt of the gun? Does that look about right? Or is his hand, yeah, it's not, let's have a look. It may mean that the gun's a little bit big, or it may mean that the angle's not quite right. Now I suggest that, right, so now another thing here is, this is the axis point now, is right near the front of the gun, and I would like it to be here, right? So all you do is you go to the axis tool and then you just slide this back to here and then uncheck it again. And then when we rotate, it will rotate from the hand he's holding it rather than rotate over here. Okay, it's just little tips, aren't they? Little things that you do as you go along and you remember them. You think that'll be useful to let people know that in case they haven't realised that. But so that's what I like to do. Is just to put the pivot in at the place where you want the gun to pivot from. You know, when you're applying it to the character. So let's just make sure. Let's make sure we're okay. Let's have a look. Let's put it into some quick shading. And then see if see the gun's he's not sat in the palm of his hand quite right yet. It wants to kind of push to there, but then his finger, so it's tricky because it's a bit of a balance really. You really want that trigger, you want that finger to be on the trigger like that. But then I don't know if it's that bad. I don't know if you'd see it. I don't know if we're going to see that level of detail. I know I do like to get these right. You know, it's just attention to detail, isn't it? Let's spend a bit of time now on them and make sure that they're kind of sitting nicely within. But that's all you got to do. We just got to keep adjusting it until it looks right and the scale looks right, you know. And if you don't know, you could go back, look at the film, look at the Star Wars film, look at the character, see what size the gun is compared to the stormtrooper, and then just make a judgment on the size, because all these models that you import, they will all have different scales on them. Some I import and they're so small you don't even think you've imported it. You know, they're just made tiny, and some of them are huge, and they're all sizes in between. So yeah, you don't know what they're going to be until you import them into the page. So I'm fairly happy with the scale of that and where it sits. Now then, this is where we need to constrain it, or I think it's called constrain. Yeah, I'll show you that in a second. Because if we don't, we will, if we move this character, I don't really want to do that because I've just lined it up. Okay, we're on 396, so let's move it, so as long as I can remember where we are with it. Have a look what happens now. We move it there and the gun is just sat in that exact spot where we've just lined it up to. And the reason I wanted 396 is so I don't have to do that again. So at 396 he's holding the gun. So how do we attach this to the character, so when the character moves around the gun stays moving with him? This is what you do. Click on the E11 blaster, right click, go to rigging tags and go to constraint, and then when we're on the constraint dialog box here, we click on parent and then another tab appears. Okay, so in this tab what we need to do is we need to tell the target here where that gun, because we've got the tag on the blaster, where it's going to target to. Where do we want it to attach? Okay, do we want to attach it to the head of the character, to his foot, to his left, his right hand? Where would you attach it? So that's the first thing you need to know, is where does that gun want to attach to? Now, I personally would say it wants to attach to the right hand because that's where he's holding it and holding the trigger. Okay, so that's the point where I would say that needs to hold. So where do we find his right hand? So if we go to the figure that's not been turned off, do you remember when we turned off all of these animated and left the main one, the first one? That's the one we're going to find the hand reference point in. So we go to that one and we open up this. I think I've already navigated to it, so I'm just going to close these down. We need to go to the Mixamo rig. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I was going to say I need to have another coffee because I've drunk that one. But yeah, hang on. Apologies for that. I am sorry. What we need to do is we need to go to the Mixamo rigs bit here, which is the rigging, and then we need to open up this, and it would be collapsed like this. So you go to spine, and then you go to spine again, and then you'd go to left or right shoulder. So obviously we want the right shoulder, and then we'd want the right arm. Yeah, I'd pre-open these up because I had a little experiment with it before the video, so that's why these are all open. Yeah, so you'd go hips, spine, neck, right shoulder, right arm, right forearm, and then the last one then would be the hand. Okay, so that's the point there, which we've found on here. So if we go back to the blaster and this tag, this constraint expression tag, and it's asking for a target, we just drop the Mixamo rig right hand into there. Okay, so we're telling it that that's where we want that blaster to fix to. Now what we need to do here is we need to record optimized. You click on that and it will put a little red record mark in there. So that's now recorded the position of that gun on that hand. So if we move the timeline around now, okay, you can see what's happening is it's attached itself to this part of the hand. So as we move that around, it's what you'd expect it to be. But the problem we've got now is if we go back a few frames, if we rewind this back, that is where it would attach to his body, but it's attached to his hand. Okay, so as we move backwards, it's always in his hand, look. And that's what I was saying before, that it's on his head. We don't want the gun in his hand all the time. It's not attached to him like super glue. It needs to be attached to his body on a holster, a belt or something like that. And then when he needs to move his arms or when he needs to take the gun, that is when it attaches. Right, so how do we detach this gun, which seems to be stuck to his hand? Again, I'll show you that right now. So let's move this to where he would take the gun. Just there, he's just lifting it up there, look. All right, so we go just before he starts to lift it. And then over here, we need to now add another point of where that gun is going to be. So it's going to be attached to his hip, and then when he takes it, it'll be attached to his hand. So we need to create another one of these. So we just click on add. So we have two, and then the target here will be his hips, which is here. Look. So we drop that in. Now, what I need to draw your attention to on here, which is very important, is the weights. Here where it says weight 100% for each one. Now all you got to do when you think of this is when it's in his hand, you want that to be 100% weighted towards it being in his hand, okay, and 0% on the hip, right, because it's not on there at all. So it's 0 and it's 100% in the hand. So that's what this scale does. Now this scale will allow you to have it go between the two, you know, so it could be halfway between the hip and the hand, but we don't want that. We want it to be 100% on the hip, and then when he takes the gun, it's then 100% in the hand. Okay, so that's what this weighting bit does here. So at this point then, we have to say he's just about to take the gun, but at this point, it's weighted 100% both. So we can't have it both. We have to have it one point and then switch it over. So what I would do here is say at this point it's 100% weighted on the hip, and then we take the hand to 0. Okay, so if we move this back, the timeline back, now you can see the gun is on his hip. And if you look over here, look, there's 0% weighted to the hand and all of it's weighted to the hip, right? So as we move forward, we can now say at what point does he take the gun? He takes it here. Okay, but have a look at this weighting thing that you see how it's going, but we need to get that on or off. Okay, because if you do that, look, the gun will float about over there because it's going, I'm 50% on the hand and 100% on the hip. You know, it can't work out what it's doing. It's got to be completely on the hip, or at this point on the hand. So what I would do here, where that's starting to do that, at that point I would say now we're 100% on the hand. So we need to then just record that point. And then on the hip here, we're 0. Okay, we can't have it in between. We have to go 100% on the hip and then 100% in the hand. Do you get how that works? It's literally, you can't have something floating from, you know, like if your phone is in your pocket, it's 100% in your pocket. When it's in your hand, it's 100% in your hand. If you have these figures halfway, that phone will be floating between your pocket and your hand. You see? So you weight it either to the pocket and it stays there, or you weight it 100% to the hand. I hope that makes sense. I mean, it took me a little while to get around this little bit here, but it's a very important part of this. So if we record it correctly, we get that. Hang on a sec. We haven't got it, have we? No, we've now got it just in the hand. Right, so let's just put it back to that point on the hip. Have a look what we've got here. We probably didn't record those 2 points. So at this point, we want it 100% on the hip, record, and then we want it 0% in the hand, record. So let's just have a look now. There we go, perfect. So if we go back, so you just got to remember to hit these record buttons to record these figures that we're putting in. If you put them in and don't press record, it won't remember it. That's probably what I just did. Right, so what we're saying now is that all the way up to where he takes that. You'll see if I can stop it in the right place. Here, that they've both been recorded points at that point. Okay, so it's 0% on the hand, 100% on the hip. And then as we move forward, it jumps there to 100% on the hand and 0% on the hip. Okay, so that's it really. It's stuck to his side, and then he goes to grab his gun at this point. There we go, he's taking it. Yeah, and there he can put it back on his body, and then he can take it like that. Okay, so that's, I hope that makes sense, that bit. So that's the bit you need to make sure you're doing, is you create really wherever you want an item to be. If it's a hat and he's got it in his hand and then he puts it on his head, you do exactly the same principle here. You've got 100% hat weighted in the hand, and then when he moves it to his head, you swap it on 0% to the hand and 100% to the head. Okay, so you'll come up here where it says spine, then you follow the spine, neck, and go to head. You see, so you can do it to any item, whether it's a gun or a hat or any item on the body. You can, or even if it's an item that he's like a ball that they catch, 100% in the hand, and then you can say it's now thrown away and it's not attached at all. You know, so that's another thing I can show you later. You know, when objects completely go away from the body. But at the moment, I'm just showing you how you attach items and move them around, you know. So you move the camera, there it is on his side. So he's doing all of his animations and he's looking, and he's spooked by something. He's spooked by something. He's like, let me get my gun. You see? So that's how that stuff works. Yeah, hope that makes sense. So that's it for this video. It's going to go on and on and on. I don't want them to be an hour long because you'll probably get bored halfway through and not want to watch them. So I want to keep them half an hour max. This is probably run over, but there's quite a lot to talk about here. You know, getting this sequencing from the previous video and now getting items being used. And then the next video I'm going to do in a couple of days, part 4 of this, will be creating a bit of background, getting some lighting that looks nice in here, and also add in the gunfire, the plasma blast, the blaster part of the gun, you know, the red explosion bit. Okay, so we'll have a look at whether we can do that in a light or a material, or even we may need to have a little plug-in if we can do that. I'm trying to do it without plugins. I really want to do this scene to say you don't need to have plugins, but there is an amazing one that I use which would just add just a little bit to this, which I will show you anyway. But we can probably do it without the plugin. So that's all for me. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. You will then get notified of when I upload these. There will be some premiere videos coming up soon where they will be on at a certain time of the day. So 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever, it will be a regular slot. Okay, so if you hit the notification and subscribe, you'll get that information sent to you. Okay, my name is Mike German. Visual Art, that's my other company. When I was just doing graphics, it's now animation, visual animation. Mike German, visual animation. I'll speak to you real soon. Take care. Goodbye for now.